Taxman, you know he wants his share. Taxman, he wants what you've earned. Taxman, he wants money to burn. He's in the soda popping cars, in your new TV. He's in the beer and wine you drink.
That was a great lead-in. For anyone watching this, my name is Matthew Struck with WhyLibertarian. You were just listening to the dulcet tones of Shawn Osborne, coming from. We got a little bi-coastal interview going here. I'm holed up in New Jersey, and Shawn's over there in the beautiful state of California. So yeah, we're.
Smokies.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. How was you're in the LA area, right? How are the fires?
Yeah.
Are you safe right now, or are you under duress?
Yeah, we're safe here. I mean, north of Burbank, I'm close to downtown, so the air quality's hideous. It's not like it is in Cisco. In Cisco, you know, the skies are red. Here, it just looks like a really, really bad day. You know, you can't see the sun. You know, I walked outside the other day, and the last couple of days, and it's looked foggy all day. You know, just a light smoke in the air every place.
Yeah.
And, you know, irritates the hell out of the throat and the sinuses and stuff. So,
I'm sure.
Yeah. You know, government mismanaged the land.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to get into that in a second. The first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that everyone knows who you are. All right. So Shawn Osborne, you're the Libertarian Party candidate. You're running in Region 65. Is that right, for Los Angeles?
No.
County?
Well, I was running for assembly, but I was unable to get the signatures in time. I got a late start on it. But I'm the Region 64 representative, so it's 64. Within the party. Yeah. So what it is, not elected. It's just within the party. You know, we get together and kind of focus the community. You know, people come in. Libertarians come into. We're doing it on Zoom now. And we talk about activism and how we're going to move things forward here in the Los Angeles area. And then I go into the county thing and report to our chair. Mm-hmm. And we talk about, like, you know, activism. So that's basically what it is. So it's not elected. I will run in 2022, though. That's a given. So I'm definitely going to do that. Probably go for state assembly.
And so have you run
area 50
times?
No, this is the first time. You know, I'm a longtime libertarian, but I never ran.
Okay.
You know, I'm a musician, so I like to just sit around and play music. And, you know, to me, politics was never my thing. I never wanted to do it. In high school, I didn't really like the whole idea of the student council and all that stuff. I couldn't stand that. And, you know, it just seems like I knew then that those people were fucked up.
Yeah.
So, the Republicans and Democrats, you know, they're a mess. And so, you know, we need to take our human action and stand up and do things, because if nobody else is going to do it, we got to get up and do it. And, you know, it's like one of those things, once somebody does it, you know, other people might join in. And that's what I've seen over the years. You know, it's kind of weird. A lot of people don't realize that Los Angeles County and Santa Clara County, I think they're about tied, but they're the largest libertarian parties in the country. And California has the largest state party in the nation. Oh, wow. You know, I was shocked. I thought it would be Texas. You know, I thought it'd be something like Texas. Yeah, California. So I'm hoping to make the Golden State gold.
Awesome. No, I love to hear that. So in kind of your interactions with people in the party there in California, in your region and maybe even statewide, what's really the feeling about the wildfires? I would imagine that's one of the most pressing things or pressing topics right now in most people's minds. Is that one of those things where you know, we feel like there's a libertarian solution that would be a lot better than, or not necessarily a libertarian solution, but just libertarians stopping everyone else trying to implement solutions that have made the problem a lot worse?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. You know, the government mismanaged the land. You know, they just now signed a bill to allow prisoners, once they've been released from jail, who fought wildfires, to fight as firefighters. So they finally did that. And it only took an absolute disaster for them to do it. Yeah. You know, just like a lot of the regulations they got rid of during COVID. You know, just goes to show you those regulations are ignorant. Yep. And they made it so prisoners who go out and fight fires couldn't become firemen, couldn't have gainful employment with the skills that they had learned. So they could, you know, move forward once they were unincarcerated,
Yeah.
So, that to me, those are the big things. Just, the way they hold back on, they mismanage things. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not terribly knowledgeable about it. I just know that, they don't take care of things, and this doesn't happen if people are taking care of the land properly. If they, I'm not into logging or anything like that. I'm a real environmentalist. I came, I came from the left. I was a Democrat, ages ago, but, I don't recognize the left-right paradigm. I think it's nonsense.
Yeah.
I look at the world as authoritarian, non-authoritarians.
I love that you brought that up, because I think that is a gigantic misnomer. I think a lot of what we're going through right now as a country is people don't understand what the two sides really are. You have a lot of people that are enraged, or they feel left out, or that they don't have a voice. And the problem is that they're picking sides based off of things that aren't accurate, right? They're picking sides based off of what they're being told the sides are drawn off of, which is unfortunate, because you have a lot of people that, if they stop to think about it, they're probably fighting for things that to help oppress them further, right? To make more authoritarian or statist kind of policy that's going to affect them even worse than they're affected now. And I think that's a huge point that you bring up. It's really authoritarian versus libertarian. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. So give me a little bit of a sense of, you've been a long time libertarian. How did that kind of come about? And you used to vote Democrat. So how did you see the light?
Yeah. I was about 14 probably when, I come from like a Union Democrat family. My grandpa had pictures with Kennedy, things like that, working with the unions when he was running for president. He'd come by and see him. And, civil liberties and, police issues, issues with the cops really meant something to me. I'm from Indiana, and, I used to get harassed by the cops for, having long hair and being a loud musician and stuff. So I always had an issue with the cops in a way. So one day when I was about 14, my mom was talking about a friend of hers that was a lawyer. And she goes, "Oh, he's a libertarian." I said, what the hell's that? I never heard that word. And she goes, this is like 1983, 84. And she said that, they're a political party. And I thought, shit, I never heard of that. They never taught us that in school. They didn't mention, I only heard of Republicans and Democrats. Yep. And she goes, "Oh, they're a small party." She goes, "You really can't vote for them because they don't get elected." She goes, the whole wasted vote thing. And she said something about them being against the war on drugs. I said, "Man, that sounds like a really good idea." There wasn't an internet back then, so I couldn't really look things up. So I, just knowing that, I kind of associated with them. And I vote my first my first Democrat vote was 1988, when I turned 18, and I voted for Dukakis. And I'm still to this day pissed off because I could have voted for Ron Paul as a libertarian.
That is true.
Yeah, and if you look at the ad, if anybody who watches this looks at the ad for Ron Paul, tell me that the ad from 1988 is not relevant today, and the country would not be better if we had voted for him then. If more people had not thought like I did at the time. Yeah. And I think to myself, man, that it still pisses me off. And then I voted for Clinton two more times, 2 times. And, I'm pissed off about that, that I could have voted for Jorgensen and what year was it? She was with Brown, 96. I forget who was there in 92. Yep. And really the final straw, besides him bombing, keeping the continual bombing of Iraq and, bombing Somalia and, Madeleine Albright's comment about the 1 million dead children being worth it. All that was bad enough, and then when they tacked on the Gore's going for the censorship. I'm a metalhead. Yeah. And when they started on the PMRC stuff, I was like, I am so out of here. You're not taking away art. When you got Bob Denver up there testifying that his music is improper and things like that needs censored, you got some real issues. So I left and I haven't looked back. So I've been a libertarian for like 24 years. Like I said, I never did anything. I just voted for an L. I knew I didn't like the other guys. And then one day I was just sitting here playing guitar, and Ted Brown, he used to be active in the LP out here in California. He called me probably January, and he said, "You're on the libertarian list. Would you like to run for office?" I said, said, you know, damn, let me check. I want to check with my family, see if they're cool with that, because it's going to be tight. And I'm also blind, so I probably need a little help with things. So I didn't want to just go, you know, get them all involved if nothing else. So
Sure.
I called him back the next day and said, I'm in. So there it was. But I didn't, like I said, I didn't get my signatures in time. As a blind guy, wasn't like I could really go door to door very easily. So I got to get a better network. So I'm going to run in 2022. But I got in touch with Angela McCardle, the chair of the county party, and man, she's glorious. You know, she's a real really great, well-spoken libertarian. You know, knows Ron Paul and Tom Woods and all these guys, and you know, and is very good at talking to people who aren't necessarily a Ron Paul libertarian. You know, she can talk to anybody, and very, very, very powerful speaker. She just recently had a debate on the Soho Forum that was really great, talking about why we should vote libertarian as libertarians. And not vote for the lesser of you.
So let me ask you this question. I mean, we have some other policy questions that we can talk about, but there's always this overhanging. First of all, anyone who is not familiar with libertarianism or being a libertarian, or you're kind of curious about it and you're watching this video or listening to it, one of the biggest hurdles, and you touched on it, Shawn, that, you know, just ballot access is a gigantic hurdle that you have to overcome in order to run for office. And if you don't have that machinery behind you, like the two larger parties have, they're you know, it means that you have to spend the majority of your time getting something that they've gotten a month or 2 months ago, or automatically based off of their prior election.
It's automatically. Right out of thin air.
And that's why 5% is such a big number. I mean, if Dr. Jorgensen can get 5%, that makes libertarianism so much more viable, because, and it's not just for the president, right? Look, the president's, you know, getting Dr. Jorgensen to be the president, or anyone to be the president, it's not just an uphill battle. I mean, it's basically climbing Everest, right? Like, it's the highest individual elected seat in the land. But who it really does help is you and, you know, all the other folks that are going to run for down ticket races to get you guys ballot access. So as opposed to having to run around, grab signatures, you're able to shake hands and kiss babies and, you know, find out all of the people that, you know, the 40% of people that don't vote, and trying to get them out to the polls as well, to make sure that they're voting for someone that they actually care for, or is actually looking out for, you know, their personal freedom and their liberty. So no, those are some awesome points. Let me ask you about this. So the flavors of the day right now are, I'll give you a choice. The two big ones right now are race relations in the United States, and the second of which being COVID. So, you know, you get to pick which one we tackle first, but what do you see as kind of the missteps that have led to the biggest problems in those two areas, and what do you think should have been done differently?
COVID, I think it'd have been nice. Well, number one, they shouldn't have tried to silence that doctor. I forget her name, when it first came here. They need to open up testing. You know, I mean, if they spent all the money that they spent on bailouts and crap like that, they could have had each of us a month's worth of tests. They could have, like, you know, 15-minute thing. We would have had this thing cleared up in no time. You know, like Thomas Massey said, we needed a what do you call it, Manhattan Project against this virus. Also, I think if they'd also just been honest to us, you know, when it first broke out, they told us don't wear masks, and which obviously probably caused it to spread more. You know, and, you know, because they did, for whatever reason, they did it. You know, obviously Trump lied too. The governors, they were a mess. You know, I don't think it's all Trump's fault. He's just a big part of the problem. Gavin, as I call him, Gavin Nuisance, he's a huge part of the problem. You know, the very fact that they tell people you have to do this. I mean, there's certain people that just aren't going to do it. There, you know, this and that. So I think if it had been up to individual businesses, so in churches and things like that, if they wanted to go to their church and not wear masks, that's fine. Let them do that. They can go to a store that doesn't allow masks. They might catch the virus. They might not too. You know, I know people who haven't worn masks and they have not caught the virus.
Yeah.
I know people that wore masks and have caught the virus.
Right.
So I mean, it's not a guarantee. 66% of the people in New York City after the lockdown who got the virus were people who stayed in their house.
Yeah,
So they got delivery food and all kinds of things. So I think just the choice, and if you give people the choice, chances are, if you let them have the knowledge that this is a really horrible thing, and it's not changing your story every 3 minutes or 3 days, you're going to have people get on the right page about it, I think.
Yeah.
That's really what it boils down to me. And we see that Sweden right now has, last I saw earlier this week, that they had 13 people in ICU because of it. Now they're down to 13 people, and they had a huge, massive problem at first.
Yeah, on a per capita basis, they were worse than us for a while, but they kind of operated knowing that was going to be the case, right? They knew that they were going to kind of have to allow the virus to spread so that eventually they could catch up essentially to everyone else and maybe even pass them. Yeah.
They also said that they were counting, if you had COVID and you died of a heart attack, they admitted that they were adding those people to their list. They said they wanted to be really straightforward with it, that might not have been COVID that killed them, so that they were honest with their people.
Yeah, no.
Mandates suck.
Mandates. I think one thing libertarians have to do a better job of, me included, is really talking about the fact that we're here to really preserve other people's ability to live their life, right? We say it, but it's never more apparent than it is with say COVID, right? And the idea being that it's not that we actually trust people to have agency over themselves and make the right decision. Okay, people have to understand and stop acquiescing to this overarching idea that there's tons of stupid people, and if a politician doesn't tell them what to do, most of those people are going to make the wrong decision. And then when it comes to something like COVID, all those idiots are going to kill me. Like, I can't let that happen. I think that's extremely narrow-sighted, and I think it's something we have to do a better job of communicating, is that we trust you. Yeah. Like we trust each individual to make the decision that's best for themselves.
I'm an atheist, and I'm an atheist, and I stand up for people who've had their right to worship taken away. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Then you have Nancy Pelosi running around without a mask. You have Mayor Lightfoot running around without a mask. You have De Blasio was doing something without a mask at the gym or something.
Oh, yeah.
Cuomo did something without a mask. All these clowns are doing. That's not leadership.
No,
that's do as I say, not as I do. That's not leadership.
Yeah.
No, that's jackasses.
That's Dr. Jorgensen said it best. With all the unrest that's happening, I believe her on this one. So much of our life now is at least impacted, if not controlled, by some level of government. Every single issue becomes person versus person or party versus party, and you have to duke it out and go to the ballot box to make a decision or do something with your life, which is absolutely ridiculous. The other problem is it takes the political cycles of elections, and then usually you would have a respite of time where it was like there was an election, and then it's time to govern, right, until the next time it is to go and campaign. Well, now it's not like that. It's like 24/7, 365, every single day, every single year is electioneering and campaigning and trying to get the next election, which is not good, because you see what happens during a campaign. That hypercharged political rhetoric is not healthy. I mean, it's meant to stir people up. It's not meant to get people to a place that is logical.
That goes really good to your next question, that whole aspect of race and stuff. I think the media has divided us. Yeah. The Democrats and Republicans are obviously guilty of it, but they've just divided us. Yeah. They put us in groups, and that, people act like if the libertarians don't, jump through hoops about saying certain things or jumping on board with a movement or something like that. The Libertarian Party is not about identity politics. Right. I care about everybody's life. If you take care of the individual's life, then the groups are taken care of on their own. If you put people into groups, certain groups, philosophies are going to trample other people's philosophies. If you look at like getting into schools, affirmative action, they're telling Asians, there's too many Asians going to school now, so we can't do that. Instead of saying, hey, how about the schools stay open later, have more classes? Nope. We're going to fight intolerance with more intolerance, and we're going to fight what's the word? I forgot the word. We're going to fight not segregation, but discrimination with more discrimination.
Yes. Yeah.
What the hell kind of policy is that? We're going to fight discrimination with discrimination. That's just crazy as hell.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of rhetoric feeds the need for retribution, maybe, right? Or trying to like even the score, so to speak.
Yeah, even the score. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and in reality, look, I don't know. You were saying like your screen name is Genghis Shawn, right? Because you like Genghis Khan. But to draw a parallel to another person that a lot of people kind of like to read about and analyze their life and history, going back to South Africa and apartheid, right? When Nelson Mandela was there for the end of apartheid, there was an element of forgiveness that had to be necessary. Like the ringleaders, you would hold to task, right? But so many people did horrible things, you couldn't send everyone to jail, right? You just couldn't. And so at some point in time, you had to draw the line and say, all right, here's our ringleaders. They're the ones that are basically going to, come to justice. And then everyone else, we just have to say, you know what? We recognize that you got caught up in it. You might have done some bad stuff, but, that was just the nature of being part of the crowd. Or, if you look at a lot of these situations, it's also the nature of peer pressure, where if you don't do it, you become ostracized and things like that. And yes, that is a cop-out to say that, but some people take that route, right? But there needs to be a moment in time where it's just like, look, can we just level the playing ground? Like just wipe the slate clean, okay? Figure out how we move forward. And what's crazy is I think the overwhelming majority of people in this country want the same things. They legitimately want the same things. It's just they fall victim to these very kind of like seducey kind of sexy headlines and propaganda that get them to try a solution that actually results in the exact opposite of what they want. Would you say that's kind of
all
accurate?
Emotion.
Yeah.
There are a lot of appeals to emotion and, fallacies of following the crowd. There's a lot of that, like with the movements, there's people like, if that's the first thing to ask you. Well, how do you feel about movement A or B? So, well, I don't think much of it. I want to solve everybody's problems. And it's funny because a lot of people say things about libertarians. Oh, you guys don't care. Where we're libertarians. If you look at the very first cover of Reason magazine in 1968, I think the cover was about police reform. Yeah, Libertarian magazine. Yep. We've been saying it all along. And then, the media doesn't want to portray that. You take in consideration like Ricky Dale Harrington Jr. is running for Senate in Arkansas. And he's the first African-American to run for Senate. The Democrat dropped out. So it's just a libertarian versus Tim Cotton. And they won't talk about him on the news. You can bet your ass if he was a Democrat, he'd be on The View. He'd be on Good Morning America. Everybody in the country would know his name and know about that race. But they would rather let that Republican get who said slavery wasn't such a bad issue. Big deal. They would rather let him get elected than let a libertarian onto the issue. Well,
I fully believe that there is there is an incestuous nature to right. The easiest conspiracy is a conspiracy of two. Right? Like it's really easy to pull off a conspiracy of two. As soon as you add in that third, right? Like someone gets too greedy and now you got a problem, right? Like just ask OPEC, like trying to wrangle those cats, right? And I think what the media and what a lot of the establishment, how should I put it? The establishment outlets that kind of give a voice to these people, they would rather deal with one of two devils than let someone else in who's a wild card, because they know they can't control them. They know they don't have any dirt on them. And they have no idea what really kind of inspires them to live the life that they live. So yeah, of course. I mean, he's still in there running in Arkansas. He's the first person of color to run for that seat in the state. And nothing. You get crickets, nothing. Right?
Yeah.
It's like a great trivia question for like any kind of cocktail party or like, night out with friends when you can't have a night out with friends is who was the first female to get a electoral college vote in the presidential race, right?
Yeah.
No one would ever think it was a libertarian. No one would ever think it was a libertarian. Yeah. So, but I'm right there with you. I think it's an uphill battle. You got to fight, but also at the same time, you kind of have to you have to maintain your principles, right? Like you have to maintain your principles.
It's funny, like you were talking about the forgiveness aspect with South Africa. So I saw this article against Kamala Harris, and I cannot stand Kamala Harris and her record. Yeah. And somebody was complaining about her because she was descended from a slave owner. I said, well, I mean, a lot of African Americans have that. And, I can't hold her guilty for her ancestors' sins, whether she's a person of color or not. And it seems like that's what a lot of it is, and like you said, the forgiveness of those kind of things. Yeah, we can't forget it. As a matter of fact, we should understand these things, and they should be taught in schools, and we should have understandings of it. But you can't legislate away hate. You can't. Yeah. People who are going to hate and do discrimination against others, they're always going to be like that. And you can only hope that through kindness and with good arguments, not stupid arguments like ad hominems and appeals to this and that you can change their minds. Yeah. And there's been a lot of people from the Klan and skinhead groups that have been redeemed themselves and gone away from that lifestyle. I just saw a thing on Kamal. I forgot his last name. On CNN has a show, and he interviewed an African American musician who had turned a lot of white supremacists who he knew as musicians he'd run into over the years. He sought them out, and he has a band with them now. Yeah. When they get together and jam, I was like, to me, that's beautiful. Music brings people together. Culture can bring people together, but to force it down somebody's throat is a whole different thing. If you would have gone in and said, "Oh, you're with the Klan," screw you, this and that, he would never reach those people. Yeah. Well, that's an actual really good example, because we also run into this problem, and I don't think it's just isolated to if you're part of the identity politics crowd or not. I think some very overly zealous evangelicals on the right will do this. The tribal think that makes you think that the right thing and everyone else is wrong. And you basically ostracize everyone who's not like you, right? The first problem is it creates an echo chamber. But the second problem is that when you ostracize those people that are on the other side of the issue, you have to give them a place to live if they do want to come over to the other side. Right. So if you spend all of your time basically calling someone whatever, pick the mean word, right? Like racist, xenophobe, whatever it is. Okay. Why would you ever condescend to think that they would have this moment of clarity and be like, oh yeah, the group that's been calling me those things, that's where I want to spend the rest of my life. You have to make it warm and inviting. No one ever gets browbeaten into this, lifetime commitment to something, and you have to give them a place to go to, Yeah. I can't think of the number of people that have unfriended me on Facebook and just the people that scream at me constantly. I had a former art teacher on Facebook because I said I had the nerve to say something about her public post. Nothing rude, just said, I don't see it that way. Yeah. She started yelling at me. I said, why are you yelling? She goes, I said, I'm glad you didn't treat me like that when I was your student. She goes, well, I'm yelling at you because this. I said, but you're still yelling at me. Yeah. Do you think you're going to convince me of anything like that? By insulting me and shaming me? I said, no, man, I'm a freedom lover. I would rather, if I could quote the Hate Breed song, it's better to stand alone. I screwed up the quote. Better to stand alone. Oh shit! I just blew it. Anyhow, the Hate Breed's got a good song.
Yeah. That's all right. That's all right. Now you've given people something to go Google, which is good.
Yeah. Now I'm going to be pissed about it as I forgot it. Yeah. So go look up Hatebreed. They got a great song.
Yeah. But
Sometimes standing alone or standing for what you believe in means standing alone.
Yes.
Sometimes standing for what you believe in means standing alone. There it is. I redeemed Hatebreed lyrics. And then I thought that, man, shit, that's a great mantra right there. And I'd rather stand. This is the hill I choose to die on.
Yeah.
The hill of liberty. I won't compromise on this.
Yeah. Well, and what's good though, and what I think a lot of people miss is the hill of liberty, right? The tenets of libertarianism allows everyone to believe what they want to believe, right? With some very basic dividing lines, right? It's non-aggression principle, and you're going to respect people's private property, and that's pretty much it, right? Like that's the two big things. Like you don't steal stuff from people that's not yours, and you don't hurt them. And and then you're free to go do whatever the heck you want. So if you want to believe this or that, and I think it's so simple that I think it scares a lot of people.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
A lot of people are afraid of freedom. If you think of in a libertarian society, you could have people like the Amish, the Hasidic Jewish people. You can have a hippie commune. They can all live the way that they want to. They can gather in their group, assemble as they please, associate with who they want to associate with, sell and buy with who they want to, work with who they want to. But in a socialist society, you cannot do that. Yeah. You cannot do that. A libertarian cannot be free in a socialist society. Yeah. And, just something about the whole socialist aspect. They talk about corporatism and how they hate it. They hate monopolies, but then they want to give the power to the government.
Yeah, they want to create a government monopoly. Yeah.
So they want a monopoly out of healthcare. Yeah. Didn't you just say the monopolies suck, but you want a monopoly? I said, I don't get it. I don't get it.
So you bring about a good point, and I think this next question leads us to the answer. The idea of centrally planning something as complex as even a county or a town, is so naive to think that anyone is going to be able to have the right skill set and ability to centrally plan every aspect of even something as small as a town or a county. And now try and apply that to a country that is the most the most prosperous country and one of the most diverse countries in the history of mankind, right? It's completely naive. So my one question or my one example here is, you have power now, right? Have you had power issues in LA County recently?
Like, you mean like with
electricity?
Yeah, we had a little brownout, but overall, other areas have had it. We had a small brownout here, but it hasn't been too bad in my area. But some areas, I'm in Lincoln Heights, and over in Highland Park, about 4 miles away, actually, Angela, our chair, I think she was without power for a day and a half during the heat wave.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because the one New York Times article I pulled out was actually entitled "Poor Planning Left California Short of Electricity in the Middle of a Heat Wave." And just some of the things that they focused on are just the most amazing comedy of errors of central planning I've ever heard of in my entire life. They had, and I'm not against green energy. I think that Dr. Jorgensen is right on the mark where some green energy, but a good commitment to nuclear is something that we should look at. But scuttled power plants and overestimating the output of green energy power plants in the state appear to have been a huge factor. And then here's the best one. In one case, they expected power production from a plant that had already been half demolished.
Shit, I did not know that. That didn't make the news here, if you can imagine.
So now, that being said, I mean, it's the Times. They're not infallible, right? So there could be something that maybe they picked up on that's complete crap. But I thought that was fun. Like that is so apropos or so endemic of the idea of being able to centrally plan something so complex. What kind of economists do you follow? Do you follow any of the classic libertarian economists?
I really like Gene Epstein with the Forum. Yeah. We had him because I also have a podcast called A Progressive and a Libertarian. And we interviewed him on there. My friend's a progressive, and we get together and drink beer.
Yeah.
Talk about craft beer. And so we interviewed him. That was a really great one. I actually just, like I said, I got into it for libertarianism more from a civil liberties aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I always knew that I hated government, hated taxes, and I knew they didn't have anything good. I felt I didn't need to read any books. Yeah. But lately, I've actually found out if you have an Audible account, they have a lot of free books, audiobooks on there, because I'm blind, so I do a lot of audiobooks.
Yep.
And they have a lot by Rothbard and Thomas Sowell, Ludwig von Mises, and they're free with your thing. So I've been listening to the Great Depression by Rothbard right now, and I have Take Human Action and a bunch of those. Yeah. Listen to a lot of Thomas Sowell.
Yeah.
Those guys. They're the ones that seem to make the most sense, and they say it so eloquently. It helps out my barbaric nature and ability to talk about it.
Yeah, I've delved into Bastiat and Adam Smith and things like that. Really like Milton Friedman. I really like Milton Friedman, and he's not the hardcore libertarians economist, but I think a lot of the things that he had to say were, a lot closer to that than most of the economists that have the ears of people in government.
Right. I have some of his books on my list, so they're definitely getting read. But I know him and Rothbard didn't like each other too much. So but that not everybody's right 100% of the time. So you can learn from two people that disagree doesn't mean either of them's wrong.
You know what? I'll take the middle ground between two warring libertarian-esque economists any day of the week.
Right.
So,
yes.
So we're running a little tight on time here as far as the length of the video. I just want to make sure that I'm being respectful of your time and also that we don't get cut off.
Yeah, I'm good.
Really quickly, both of your music and your podcast, I want to make sure that people know where they can find you. So what's the name of the podcast again?
It's a progressive and a libertarian walk into a bar. It's available on most podcast places: Apple, Google, Stitcher. It's on about everything but YouTube, I think.
Awesome.
It's on Spotify. Yeah, so it's there. And then my music's on most of the streaming services. I would say it's kind of like if Woody Guthrie wasn't a socialist.
Yeah.
I talk about a lot of, I was talking about, Black people getting shot down by the cops long before, other people were. I talk about the TSA, those kind of things. And in one of my songs, it's called Resistance, kind of trolling the left, saying like, where was the resistance when Philando got shot?
Right.
Because he had a gun.
Yeah.
Taisha Miller got shot 21 times while she was asleep in her car.
Yeah.
So these are the things I talked about. And, people are saying, well, where have libertarians been? I said, I've been here. You wouldn't listen to me.
Yeah.
You're too busy with your head up the blue ass or the red ass.
Yeah.
So if anybody can follow me on those places, check it out. My song Taxman that I played here, I actually had planned on having that recorded and releasing it this year on tax day, but, we weren't able to record. So that one's not on there yet, but I have two albums out and then a couple of EPs. I did one that's an anti-war song, and then I did one more that is an album for charity. It's called Four Others Volume 1. I thought that's a great way to give to charity. All you got to do is listen to it. The royalties go to there, and you don't have to spend any money. So I did one for Children's Hospital, one for the fallen firefighters, one for the wounded warriors, and one for the Sea Shepherds.
Yeah.
So that's a way I thought of giving to charity. Without anybody having to spend a dime. And it was a way for me to give back to the community. And, it'll last longer than I'll be on this earth.
That's
so
nice.
Those to me are, that's a libertarian motto. Stand up and do something, take human action, get up, do something, don't sit around and wait, like God helps those that help themselves kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
government helps those that help themselves. So I'm going to do it myself. I'm not waiting on government to do it.
Hopes and prayers, Shawn. Hopes and prayers.
Yeah, hopes and prayers.
You're supposed to hope, pray, and then get your ass up and go do something about it. Is basically what you're supposed to do. So I forgive my smart assery, but when you talked about pulling back the song and not necessarily doing the release of Taxman, which by the way is one of my favorites that I've listened of your stuff. I was gonna make the comment, Shawn, you live in America. Every day's tax day.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Touche. Yeah.
So I want to thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for asking me. I really appreciate it. We'll have to do this again. Maybe do you drink beer? You can come to our podcast sometime when we get back at it. I'm actually going to start another podcast called on the same network. We're going to do, one of my friends in Indiana is a lawyer, and we're going to do a podcast. We're doing it as soon as I get off the phone here or off the meeting with you. And it's going to be called the Liberty Blues. So be looking for that one too. It should be on the same network though. Awesome. So if you subscribe to a progressive and libertarian, it'll be there. And, that'll have less progressive views on it. That's for sure. That's okay. We can all deal with a little assault every so often, but that's good. That's good. Yeah. You got to listen. You got to know the people you're conversing with and meet them where they're at, or you'll never lead them to liberty.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it, and we're definitely gonna have to do this again.
Taxman, he's everywhere. Taxman, you know he wants his share. Taxman, he wants what you earn. Taxman, he wants money to burn. He's in the property you live on, in the clothes that you wear, and he's there when you get paid, and he'll be there when you die. Taxman, he's everywhere. Taxman, you know he wants his share. Taxman, he wants what you earn. Taxman, he's money to burn. He wants your money. He wants your money to burn.